my very first one, I didn't have a clue what he was wanting. I'm just like, just start talking and we'll wing it.
All right, welcome to the STEM Seekers Podcast, the podcast that equips you to help kids seek God through science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm your host, David, and joining me again today is
Jeanette.
Wonderful. Today, Jeff is not with us. He's taking some vacation and is away. But we have a guest on with us today. We have Sarah on with us today, a very special person. Not only is she an incredible, integral part of the STEM ministries and the creation of that, but she also happens to be my wife and amazing at all aspects of that. All right. That came off awkward and weird. But anyways, moving on. All right.
How about we review something, David?
That's a great idea, Jeanette.
Okay, perfect.
That's a great idea.
Perfect.
All right. So...
I think we should review my assignments.
You were.
Since I did do it this time.
You did. I was so impressed, Jeanette. So, okay. So I gave the recommendation about the STEM Everyday podcast that you and Jeff should check out. So, and you actually had a chance to listen to it. So what were your thoughts on that?
I thought it was great. I'm not a podcast person. I'm a newbie to podcasts, but I'll tell you, I thought it was great. The first one I listened to, I was like right into it. I was on my way to work and I was getting so excited that I actually had to put cruise control on because I was speeding. But then I had to stop it and call David and be like, this gives me an idea. I got to tell you this before I forget it. So I did really enjoy it. And then on the way home, I listened to another one. And I didn't quite get, my drive wasn't quite long enough. And so I actually brought it in the house to finish. And my husband's like, what's that? I said, I'll tell you afterwards. So he listened to the rest of it with me. He's like, that's pretty cool. So yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it.
There you go.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And there's a few things within the STEM ministries that we have actually adopted from that podcast. He had on a guy talking about 3D printers one time, and that's where we got the idea to actually include 3D printers as part of the STEM library, because the teacher that was recommending it was saying, hey, you don't have to be an expert with it. Just go on that learning adventure with the kids. And so I'm like, hey, you know what, if some random person that knows nothing about 3D printers can integrate it into their classroom, our amazing STEM leaders could totally do that in their clip. So anyway, so that's how that ended up in there as well. So that's a review, and now we have our STEM bucket, where we try and give some tips and tricks on how to help you do better at STEM Club and STEMcation, and so on. So what's in our STEM bucket today, Jeanette?
So in our STEM bucket, I would like to know, so I look after the printing, and after you guys are done all of your part of it, then it comes to me. I get these pieces that I'm printing or that we're putting together, but I don't always know what they are. And so one of the things are STEM Connects. I'd like to know more about what a STEM Connect is, or how it works with the rest of the program, because when we're putting them in the booklets and whatever, big bold letters say STEM Connect, but I don't always know what it means. So enlighten me.
Very cool. There you go. And Sarah's probably chomping at the bit to be like, I want to talk about STEM Connects. STEM Connects are amazing. They're a huge part of STEM ministries, both with STEM Club and STEMcation, where we're trying to not just have a program that we say is STEM, and then we do a few cool STEM things and then offer a Bible story that has nothing to do with STEM. And so the whole purpose of the STEM Connect is to connect God's word and a better understanding of who God is through the world of STEM, helping kids to understand more about God through science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And with the STEMcation program, we take it one step further, and we provide specific activities that they can do to kind of help them understand more about what they're learning each day. So like one of them is, we didn't actually think we were going to put it in, but Sarah actually was really pushed for it that we should do it. It was at the very last minute that we were trying to figure out what we're doing, and I had done a lesson for our Sunday school class on the paralyzed man who was let down through the roof. And so I thought, hey, why don't I give the kids some string and some 3x5 cards and a block, and see if they can figure out a way to create a mat and rope. And then they had to lower their block on their mat down through the top of a structure. And the kids learned a lot through that, in that if you just try and lower somebody down, that 9 times out of 10, that person is going to fall off. And so they actually had to think about, how are we actually going to keep our man on there? How are we going to keep the block on there? And so they really worked through that problem solving. And that happens to be one of our lessons for this summer. And we ended up including that as a problem. And that day is all about problem solving, because STEM, the big part of it is just looking at problems and not giving up and saying, I can't do it, but working with a team and problems and saying, okay, how can we create solutions for these problems? And so we actually give those all those materials that you need, which I think is the coolest part of one of the coolest part of the programs as well, because I am not a guy that enjoys going out to the dollar store and buying a whole bunch of different stuff that I see in a curriculum. I'm like, if you really want me to do it, then give it to me. Give me what I need to succeed. And so that's why we put everything when it comes to those STEM Connects, everything goes in that box for you to be able to use. So that's one of them.
It's very interesting because Sarah just sent me a list of the things that I need to get to put together for those kids. And it's very interesting. Like, some of the things are Sharpies, tape, food coloring, resealable bags, yarn, colored markers. So it's very interesting of what's going to come of all of these little bits and pieces. So it's kind of exciting to hear more about that, because I had no idea what the yarn part was for, and so it's kind of cool.
There you go. And I guess that's the whole point of that STEM bucket, is that we want to equip you as a leader to be able to do that ministry with kids, and that's part of that curriculum kit, is giving you everything you need to be able to succeed in what you're doing there. All right. Moving on to our next segment, we're going to meet one of the creators. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Sarah. Thank you.
All right. So, Sarah, you're part of the team when it comes to STEM Ministries. So, what is your role within STEM Ministries?
Well, there was a role that kind of started things off, of helping to begin to launch STEM Ministries, I guess you could say, of working with David to be able to kind of have the idea of STEM Ministries and be inspired to see that happen. And that kind of came about through our own kids, and seeing how they were interested in STEM stuff and how it could get connected with the Bible, and just seeing that would be a really powerful ministry opportunity and a really great opportunity for kids to learn and grow in multiple aspects of things. So that's kind of where things started off. And then I've kind of been around for seeing the process, as it started out tiny in our house, and, started with one club that was just a prototype kind of thing. And then hosting the meetings in my basement, David and Josh and Ashley hanging out there and getting to be in and out of those meetings while I was able to, while caring for children and during that time. Just kind of getting to be a part of the idea process, but then more officially now, just as an editor. So the curriculum editor, or one of the curriculum editors for the content edits, and then also there's been different editing roles at different times. I get to write some things periodically, often more just filling in holes where things come up that need to be written. And then more recently moving into manual design. So taking all the pieces that we've worked to edit, and that when they're ready to be put into the manual and are ready to be off, to be printed, to get sent off to kind of publish them in that way. Now I get to see all those pieces come together, which is kind of fun now that we are able to put in like the pictures of all the different things, and getting to see it all laid out all together is really a neat way of seeing it. And then I also do work with the STEM Genius stories as well.
Yeah, STEM Genius stories are really cool. Can you just give a brief overview what a STEM Genius story is?
So a STEM Genius story is telling the story about someone's life that loves the Lord, but is also involved in some way in the STEM field. And so some people, it's a lot more major. They've had some influence, or some it's more formal, or some informal. But basically being a part of, I don't know. I wasn't prepared for that question.
So can you give us an example of one of our STEM Genius stories?
Yeah, so one of them was, so we have different ones in the summer that are a bit longer, and then the ones in the school year, there's 4 throughout the school year, which are about 3 to 5 minutes in the school year for 6 weeks. And then the STEMcation one that is 5 days, but is 8 to 10 minutes long. So the one for STEMcation is Ida Scudder, that for this current part that I got to put into the manual. And so Ida Scudder was a lady that grew up in India. Her parents were missionaries, and then she went back to the States. And she did not want to have anything to do with going back to India or being a part of all the things there, but then went back to visit and ended up really feeling the call to help people, as she saw 3 men come in one evening that all 3 of them needed help for their wives that were giving birth, and could not have a male doctor come, and all 3 of their wives died that night. And so she was really impacted by that, and felt the Lord call her to be able to care for the women of India, and give them medical care, but also to be able to care for them spiritually as well. And so through that, she ended up doing some very creative, innovative things, trying to reach people and help them in the early 1900s, and then ended up having a nursing college for Indian women to be able to become nurses, and had to struggle through to be able to make that happen. But yeah, sorry, that was way longer. I just get excited just telling the whole story, right? Of one person, and there's so many different cool, amazing people.
Yeah.
I think it's so inspiring for the kids, though, to hear those stories of those real life people, that it's not just a theory that we came up with STEM ministries, that, if kids get into STEM, they'll learn more about God. But this is something that's actually practically worked its way out in people's lives, and for kids to see that there are real people that you can look at and be inspired by, that not only that loved STEM, but were also moved and inspired by God and by their faith.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think for me, that's where I pushed to have, as we began to think about what we wanted to have in a STEM program. And when I was in high school, I was really impacted by my science teacher sharing about Christians that had been involved in the science fields, and how they wanted to honor God and seek Him, and that doesn't have to be a separate part. You don't have to just leave STEM and separate it from God, but that God can be at work in your life and be leading you and I just love the stories of real people. I love learning about their lives and just meaningful change that they've had in the world and their love for the Lord and how they're not perfect. None of us are either. And I think that's encouraging as well. Like I love R.G. Letourneau was another STEMcation story and just his wild childhood and all the different things. But yeah.
Which is gives a lot of hope to us as parents.
Exactly, right? Yeah. But that when he turned his heart to the Lord and he really was used by God, but it wasn't easy either. There was a lot of sacrifices and things that happened. And so I think being able to see in a real life example of someone, I think that's so amazing.
Yeah.
I just love getting to do some of the research and trying to see all these different people and
getting to read books.
Yes, I get to read books. I know.
One thing I think is cool, out of those that you just mentioned, what they did is still going on today, right?
Yeah.
Like her nursing school or Letourneau, there's a university. Yeah. So the kids can be like, wow, this was in the 1900s, but it's still there now. Right. And it's, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's that lasting impact.
Yeah. I love something that we didn't plan either, but is seeing the thread of people of where Betty Green was one of the STEM club, STEM geniuses that we did. And
just to let you all know while you're listening, we have our kids here as well, and so you might hear them. You might be hearing them in the background.
But yeah, Betty Green, was a part of beginning Mission Aviation Fellowship and had a big role in flying and all of those parts. And then in that same year, we also got to share about. Now I'm totally blanking on his name, but Nate Saint. Thank you. And so just to be able to see that thread is just kind of a neat aspect of seeing two different sides in a way, or like two different ways of different people that God used, and their love and passions and how those were able to be used.
I didn't see that. Hi. You coming to join the podcast? All right, come join us. All right. Last question. Now that we have one of our kids here, because our kids, some of our kids have got to go to STEM Club. Luciana isn't quite old enough yet. But what are some of the things that you love about STEM Club? Or what? Maybe one thing. What's one thing that you love about STEM Club?
What, you don't want this to be 2 hours long? One thing that I just love is seeing my own kids' excitement for learning about STEM and learning about the Lord and how that has grown and seeing that grow. And it's so cool when they come home and they share something that they've learned at school or somewhere else, something they've experienced and they've enjoyed, and they say, wouldn't that be great for STEM Club? And we're like, yes, yeah, it would be. And so they really are a part of the process as well. And I think that's the best part, is when they're excited about something and they want to share it. Like they think other kids would enjoy that as well. So it's been really neat to see them a part of things as well.
What do you think about STEM?
Watching the kids.
Yeah, you like it when somebody's sick and then you have to come along. And you get to come to STEM Club.
That's right. You have been to STEM Club.
She has been to STEM Club a few times. But yeah, she.
What's your favorite thing to do at STEM Club? Do you like it when Daddy comes home with new pieces of STEM equipment to try?
Yeah.
Yeah. Luciana is one of our testers for our STEM equipment. Is there one that we brought home that I brought home that you really liked? Did you like the car track?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was pretty cool. The Picasso car track. That was a lot of fun.
That was a hit.
Yeah, it was a big hit. All right. Okay. On to our next segment where we're going to talk about the latest STEM discoveries. And this isn't so much a discovery as much as kind of a shift in mentality that I am starting to see in the STEM world. And it's really shown through a company that you may know of, Intel. They make computer processors, and they even had processors that were in Macs before Macs got better. And nothing. Anyways, Intel, we love you. Sponsor the show. It'd be great. Anyways, but there's always been a push to make things more powerful and faster. And so that's what Intel has done for a long time, is they have really focused on how can we make a processor faster so that we can get computations done quicker and you can do more things at once. And they have gone away from that, from focusing on speed, and instead going towards efficiency. And we see that in other areas, like you see that in cars, that once upon a time it was just like, how much horsepower can we get out of this car, right? And now it's how many miles or how many kilometers can we get to a liter of gasoline? That's more what the focus is, because we're realizing, well, gas is really expensive right now, and so on. And so Intel is focusing more on making their processors more efficient. Wow, that's quite the ninja move there. Another time. So they're working on making their processors more powerful. And so instead of having like two main core processors, that they'll actually put multiple processors onto a single chip. And the way that this all works out is that you can have just as much power, just as much computing power in your computer for about a sixth of the energy. And so that gives you things like you don't have as much heat and so if you're feeling your new phone or whatever, when it's doing a lot of stuff, it's not. I remember having an older iPhone and the thing all of a sudden would just feel like it was on fire, right? And now they're focusing more on, let's make it more efficient so they're cooler, which also means there's less energy loss, which means your battery lasts longer. And so there's less energy consumption from that as well. And so I think that's a really cool thing, that there is a shift now to say, okay, we have a lot of really powerful stuff. Now, how can we make it more efficient? So there you go. That's my latest STEM discovery. I think it's really cool. All right. Last thing for today is STEM recommendation. I am recommending another YouTube channel called Veritasium, Vertasium. Don't ask me what that means. But this guy... Please don't. I don't know what it means.
Google,
right?
Do your homework.
The guy who hosts it is just this brilliant guy that takes some really complex ideas and simplifies them down, and some really cool videos out there on why at room temperature can you feel a piece of cloth and then feel a piece of metal, but metal feels colder, right? And why is that? I mean, they're both at the same temperature. They're both sitting in the same room, but why is that different? So he goes and explains some of these
Now I gotta
things,
find out one.
right? I know.
Absorption, I
There- All right, there you go. There's your homework for next time, Veritasium. So that's my recommendation. We don't have a sponsor again. So again, this episode is sponsored by Child Evangelism Fellowship Ontario, helping to support you in reaching children with the gospel. And so if you are a church in Ontario, or even, I guess, even across Canada, STEM is actually being offered in several different provinces now. That if you want to be able to reach kids in your community in an engaging way, check out our website at cfontario.org and check out our STEM ministries, along with other ways that we can support you as a church. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next one. We'll talk to you next time. That sounds better.
Talk to you next time.